There is a deeply concerning issue that has been plaguing societies around the world, particularly the Western world, and even more particularly within the United States. Something coming to be known as deaths of despair. While parts of this issue have started to become more widely discussed recently with the opioid crisis, it is still a phenomenon that's been on the rise for decades. It's crucial that we understand the underlying causes and explore potential solutions for this. The increase in deaths of despair is deeply concerning on a human level, and there are a number of causes. Considering this issue as one with significant economic implications, we are left with a very serious question. Is capitalism failing so many people, and if so, why? Let's begin by understanding what we mean when we talk about deaths of despair. This term encompasses fatalities resulting from three specific causes: suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol-related incidents. These tragedies are often linked to underlying feelings of hopelessness, depression, and a lack of purpose. And the alarming rise in these deaths over the last few decades has raised a critical question. What is driving this epidemic of despair? There are a lot of causes, but a number of them all come back to a central theme. That is, a downward trend of the economic conditions for the middle class, particularly those without a degree.
Do you want me to go to college?
College? Ha! Barber or clown?
Bart!
Economic instability and the shifting job market have left many feeling adrift. Industries that once provided stable livelihoods have faded away, leaving communities entirely without their own footing. The resulting financial stress and uncertainty that comes from this can create a breeding ground for despair, and we see this in particular parts of the country. It's crucial that we address the economic factors that contribute to this crisis. Investing in retraining programs fostering diverse economic opportunities and supporting affected communities can be instrumental in combating deaths of despair. These economic pressures are what I want to focus on in this video for two reasons. First, I believe that this contributes, if not causes, other factors that are relevant here, such as social isolation and loneliness, and access to mental health support and health care. And second, I think I really want to talk about this because as a banking and finance lawyer, I can actually speak to the economic pressure with far more legitimacy than I could ever speak to issues such as substance abuse or addiction in isolation. While life is certainly much more than just money or economic opportunity, those further things that make life enjoyable, like families, friends, activities and leisure, and for some people, religion and political participation, are all more readily available and also available in a greater degree when people have a certain necessary baseline financial position. This financial capacity and economic opportunity is certainly becoming increasingly difficult for some people, particularly in the US context for white Americans without a degree between the ages of 45 and 54, where the deaths of despair are increasing at a truly depressing rate and one that far exceeds other cohorts. This population has seen a decrease in real wages over the past 50 years, and there can be no doubt that this decline in wages is a significant factor for the increase in deaths of despair. So, what can be done? That is a difficult but necessary question if we want to conclude that the increase in deaths of despair is both caused by a decrease in economic conditions and is also an unacceptable result. And here is where I have to speak honestly with you and explain a pragmatic way forward for you as an individual. Because while the social issues are deeply concerning, I can't change that with this message of the video. That isn't what I'm trying to communicate, though those issues are real and need to be addressed. While providing guidance on how you can individually improve your own economic conditions, I fully accept that this in no way aids the bigger systemic issue that I've listed above. I personally would vote for better policy steps to be taken which address the issue, even knowing that such policies would likely cost me as both a high-income earner and someone with an above-average degree of wealth, including holding multiple properties. The reality is though that you've got to first take care of yourself before you can take care of others. It's too late to teach your neighbour to swim if you too are drowning. You've got to at least take steps in furtherance of your own well-being. This notion shouldn't be taken too far for what is inevitably going to be immoral lengths. I cannot accept the actions of people like the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma who knowingly benefited from, if not simply contributed or caused, the opioid crisis, and in doing so earning for themselves an unconscionable amount of money at the expense of others. There are moral standards and boundaries that you should, in fact, you need to adhere to. But this is in no way a restriction on your ability to become wealthy. Because I'm not talking about that stupid, excessive level of wealth. I'm talking about a simple, more realistic, obtainable level of wealth. Statistically speaking, getting a degree is an obvious piece of good advice. This may annoy people, particularly on YouTube, but the statistics show across the board a range of improvement enjoyed by those who have a 4-year degree or higher against those who do not. I can certainly say that my law degree has paid for itself over many times, and I'm only 29, and the benefits from that study and the subsequent experience only grow exponentially from here. Of course, a degree is not a must, but skill acquisition is. A degree is just an easy way to signal to the market a bare minimum degree of competency in a particular field. There are a lot of things of equal value that you can be doing if you either can't or don't want to go to university. Now, I don't advocate any skill acquisition for the sake of it. You need to think of the economic ramifications. If it isn't going to make you economically more valuable, then it's not what I'm talking about. Learning French is a wonderful thing to do and is a good skill, but for most people it doesn't make them more economically valuable. If you want to work in France or with a French business, then sure, that's obviously worthwhile. Otherwise though, it may just be a hobby, and you can do it, but you're doing it for the fun of it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not going to be improving your capacity to generate greater wealth, at least not directly. Learning more about real estate, however, might be an example of something that does improve your capacity to generate further wealth. Learn how to renovate a house or developing those skills is going to be very useful if you want to start property investment. You've got to look at the economic implications of all these things. An easy example from my own life is, while I do own multiple properties, I actually don't make any effort to learn any particular degree of skill when it comes to the renovating of property, the maintenance of property, construction, or any particular trade. And the reason why I don't invest my limited time learning how to renovate a property, despite it being of obvious value even to me, is simply because I generally make more money after tax as a lawyer per hour than a tradesman costs me. Why would I do it myself, other than for the pure joy of it? You've got to understand the value of your time. Every one of us needs to engage in a cost-benefit analysis and understand the opportunity cost of what you're doing. It's a really pragmatic way to view the world, and it will yield you many benefits. Because when we're talking about deaths of despair and we're looking at the particular people who are suffering from it the most in the United States of America, it is those people left behind by untapped capitalism. Those people who previously were involved in lines of work that have either been made redundant by technology or more likely moved overseas to countries like Mexico or China where labour is cheaper. Globalization and offshoring and untapped capitalism have left people behind, and it will continue to do so. That is a sad reality and one that we as a society need to address, but until we do, and I don't expect it's going to be as quickly as it should be, then you as an individual, particularly if you have a family or people that are dependent upon you, need to look at the reality of the situation in the eye and make some very serious, deliberate steps to ensure that you aren't someone who is becoming economically disadvantaged by these changing economic trends. You can't change the game. You can't change the rules. Obviously, some people may be able to if they rise to particular levels in politics or likewise, but the reality is most people simply can't, nor do they need to. A pragmatic person can play within the rules of the game and ensure that they aren't left behind. The sad reality is that a lot of people left behind failed to make the adjustment to make themselves more economically viable. They weren't given necessary help, and that is a criticism that the government needs to wear and adjust to. But the reality is, someone that was previously employed in manufacturing in America may no longer be, and if they simply do not take steps in their own interest to get another skill, another learning, something that can be economically exploited, they may be left behind or forced to take lower paid jobs in less exciting, less enjoyable and less meaningful conditions, and probably somewhere where union representation is less. Because that is the reality for a lot of people. This is a pretty bleak tone. This message is relatively somber, and I'm sorry for that. It's not something that I could or should in good faith talk to people about in any other light, because it is quite a depressing message, and the story playing out right now across America is unquestionably a sad one. But for you and your own self-interest, if you are someone being left behind, you need to focus on making yourself more economically valuable. Retraining is not an easy process. I'm glad I haven't had to do it, but I may very well need to. As a banking and finance lawyer, AI is certainly going to change how I do my job. I don't expect that it'll ever replace me. I expect it's more likely I'll need to change how I work with it. But that is a minor degree of retraining that I'm very open to and very accepting of. And you may need to engage in a high degree of that. And I'm sorry that is the reality you have to face. But you do have to face it.
Human nature is we don't like change, but we can do it.
This video is not an in-depth discussion of the issues that cause deaths of despair. If you are interested in that, there are fantastic books, particularly Deaths of Despair and the Future of Capitalism by Case and Deaton, the latter of which actually won an economic prize, the equivalent of a Nobel Prize, for some of his work in this area. That book is a much better rundown into the economics behind this and other causes, but even it isn't the complete picture. The complete picture is complicated, and together, through understanding, empathy, and proactive measures, we can work towards a future where hope prevails here. But in the meantime, you need to get ahead of this as an individual, and you need to take care of yourself. If you or someone you know is struggling, please don't hesitate to seek help. I might not be the right person to provide it, but there are resources available, and help will be there for those who ask for it, even if it's not enough. Remember, you are not alone. There is help, there is hope. Anyway, if you found the video interesting, let me know in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this.
Marge, I'm confused. Is this a happy ending or a sad ending?
It's an ending, that's enough.